Well, you know, you've gotten pretty good at identifying some of these thoughts, Chris.
Right.
And I think one of our agenda items was to look at your homework assignment where you wrote down some of these thoughts while you were, you know, away from the session,
Right.
Thinking about some of these things. Shall we take a look at that?
Okay. Yeah, I've got one. Here it is. Yeah.
Okay. So what's the situation?
Well, corporate's coming. They want to come look at this new line and see how we're doing.
So that must be causing you a little bit of what?
Stress. We're all anxious about it.
And so obviously generating a lot of those negative thoughts we've been having you take a look at. What have you got down there?
I came up with 6.
So a lot of negative thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at a couple.
They're going to see how bad my line's doing. You know, they're going to look at productivity and see I'm not keeping up. They're going to yell at me or reprimand me.
Again, that's sort of what they're going to do.
Right.
What are the thoughts that you're having?
Okay.
Did you get to any of those?
Yeah, I'm going to lose my job.
Okay.
That thought I can't do anything right again. I'm such a loser. And I'm just like my dad. You know, my dad was in a dead-end job. I'm in a dead-end job.
Well, maybe we could pick out one of those and see how you did with thinking up some of those more realistic or rational thoughts.
Yeah.
Which one would you like to pick?
I really struggled with that part. I didn't come up with any rational responses. I'm going to lose my job. We talked about what is it? This thinking error things, and I think you said that's catastrophic thinking, something like that. I got that, but I don't know.
Well, maybe it might help if we made sort of a what's a fact, you know,
Okay.
what's rational, what's irrational, what are the
Okay.
pros and cons kind
Okay.
of thing. So, you know, generally we just sort of
Okay.
look at the evidence.
Okay.
So the one we want to talk about is I'm going to lose my job.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to lose my job. Okay, so how about on this side we put evidence for,
Okay.
evidence against.
Okay.
Okay, what's the evidence for I'm going to lose my job?
Well, productivity's behind on my line.
So
That could cause...
decrease productivity.
Yeah. We're not making our goal.
Not making the goal.
Talked about before, I have that reprimand now on my record.
So I've got a black mark.
Yeah.
Is that one black mark?
Yeah, just one.
Okay, out of how long?
10 years.
Okay, so evidence for, though, is you have one black mark.
Right.
Okay.
Um,
That's a couple.
mhm.
What about any evidence against that you're not going to lose your job?
Well, they're already low on employees, so it's not like, you know, they're not in a hurry to let someone go because they don't have enough people as it is. So
Okay, so you're
they need employees.
so you are a needed person.
Right.
Okay. What else?
Well, I guess you talked about that one black mark. You know, I've been there 10 years, and that's the first incident. So I've got a good track record, seniority.
Good track record, seniority.
We're not missing production by that much.
So we're close.
Right, we're close.
Close to goal.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess another one is this company doesn't have a history of firing on a whim.
So they're a pretty good boss.
Yeah, they tend to be fairly loyal to you.
Okay. Loyal to employees.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're looking at this. Anything else you'd put in either column?
I guess against would be no one said anything about me losing my job.
No
Warning.
verbal warning.
Yeah, usually they're pretty good about letting you know if you're on the edge.
Okay. So maybe we go back and look at these again.
Yeah.
Evidence for, evidence against.
Yeah.
As you look over these, what goes through your mind?
Well, even the evidence for me losing my job is not that strong. I mean, yeah, I guess it could happen, but you know, as you told me, that's that catastrophic thinking. So I'm going to an extreme on that.
Well, and also I wonder, when you look at that one black mark,
Right.
Was evidence for, and then you said, well, one black mark out of 10 years. Can you identify one of those cognitive errors in that situation?
Was that mental filtering, kind of focusing on one negative and not seeing all the positives?
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it's true. I mean,
by writing these down and taking a look at that, how did that go for you?
realize that's not really good evidence. That's, you know, the evidence against that statement's not as stronger.
So if you went back and tried to reframe that statement,
Right.
I'm going to lose my job, how might you reframe it?
It's not likely. It's not likely that I'm going to lose my job. I mean, it could happen, I guess, but it'd take a lot more than that for me to lose my job.
So possible, but not probable.
Right. Yeah.
Do you think that belief will influence how you go into this meeting with the bigwigs?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be anxious, but I'm not going to be terrified.
Because?
Well, looking at that, you know, it doesn't look like it's much of a threat. They're not really coming in to fire anyway. They just want to see how production's going with this new line.
Now that we've taken a look at that one, is there another one that we can go through and do the same thing on here?
Yeah, that one I can't do anything right. That seems to be the one that keeps coming up.
So maybe without writing them down, but how would you look at that?
That sounds like there's one of those cognitive errors in it.
Which one would you label this as?
Maybe that all or none thinking. I mean, kind of like one black mark on my record versus 10 years of good service.
You know, whenever I hear those words like anything or never or always, you're right. It sort of keys me into that all or nothing thinking. So how would you do the two columns there?
Obviously, there are some things I can do right. I'm not totally incompetent. There's a lot of things I can do right. I mean,
so specifically?
Well, I do my job okay. I mean, 10 years I wouldn't still be there. They wouldn't have made me a line supervisor if I couldn't do anything right.
Right.
Okay.
So it sounds like you're getting the hang of it, that
Right.
Examining the evidence for and against makes you look at things a little more realistically or rationally.
Sure.
Now, it may be that not all of them come out that way, but I wonder if you could take a couple of those on the list and, you know, sit down and write down the examining the evidence for and against, and then see if that helps you come up with a more rational thought as a homework assignment.
Okay. We can do that.
And maybe even as you're doing it, if you spot some of those cognitive errors, just sort of label them. That gives you a little practice. You writing them down really gets you into the groove a little bit. It helps to change the thinking, I think, a little bit easier.
Okay. I think I can do that.
Okay.